Hi, Florence.
Hello.
So can we jump right into questions here?
Of course, yeah.
All right. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Your new album, wondering if there's any particular song or experience that you can share with us that's memorable from the record, or if there's a particular song that you like.
Well, there's quite a few moments. I think right now I'm kind of obsessed with Only If For a Night. It's the opening track on the record, and it's a funny mix of imagery and influences, because some of it is partly inspired by my dead grandmother and some of it is inspired by Joan of Arc. So it's a strange mix of things for a pop song, really. But Paul sent me over this. I was traveling and he sent me over this this track that had all these English church bells at the beginning of it, and it really reminded me of the English countryside and my grandmother's funeral, because I used to hear the church bells when I stayed at her house, and the bright green grass of the graveyard and the sunshine, and I was really young in these sort of new black clothes, and it was a weird day because in some ways it was really beautiful and in some ways it was really sad. And my grandmother, actually, I saw her in a dream the first time we did a tour with MGMT, and my dad was the tour manager, and we were in this camper van and sleeping in a German wood, and there were three of us all in the band, all on the floor, and then my dead grandmother crops up in a dream, and it was a really extreme time, and she kind of told me to concentrate in this dream, which was quite practical advice, I thought, from beyond the grave. You kind of expect a ghost to turn up with great sort of romantic messages, but she's just telling me to concentrate. So it was really sad and really beautiful, but I kind of woke up crying, and I never wrote a song about it on the first record, and I thought it would be nice to get her involved. And then the drum pattern itself kind of reminded me of these clashing hooves and swords, and I kind of started getting this Joan of Arc imagery in my head, and because I was thinking about dreams and visions, they do kind of tie together, the two things. And so yeah, I think it kind of conjures up all these things for me, obviously. So I've kind of been listening to that one quite a lot.
Do you write solely about things that you've experienced? Do you ever try to, when you're writing songs, put yourselves in someone else's head or someone else's shoes, like, say, Tom Waits? Or do you find that you mostly write songs about your own personal experiences?
I think it is a really intensely personal thing for me, writing songs. But I think there's one song in the record I was trying to write from the perspective like a male soul singer. I think Lover to Lover, I've been obsessed with Otis Redding and Sam and Dave, and I've been watching live Otis Redding clips before I'd go on, and that Try a Little the version he does of Try a Little Tenderness, like on the Stax Soul tour, I was obsessed with it and watched it every time before I went on stage on one European tour. And so I think with the song Lover to Lover, I was trying to write a song from the perspective of kind of aggressive male soul singer, sort of shaking off the idea of salvation and kind of embracing this life of sort of sin and touring. And it was kind of a much more aggressive way to write for me.
Speaking of inspirations, who are your other inspirations? We have a question from a user. I'm not going to look for it right now, but they mentioned that your style of singing is very particular and expressive, extremely soulful. Where's that coming from? What did you listen to growing up?
Growing up, I think most of my memories come from being in the car with my dad. I think traveling a lot, and I'd be at the front of the car, constantly changing the radio station and driving my dad mad. But I think the songs that first started affecting me were probably I remember listening to Billie Holiday and a lot of Etta James and Nina Simone. But my dad was a big fan of the Velvet Underground as well, and Love. I think Anne Moore again was one of his favourite songs, and the Incredible String Band. And I think we listened to a lot of the Eurythmics as well, Annie Lennox, and I went through a real sort of grunge phase too. So I don't know. I was kind of always interested in everything.
So when I was listening to your record, one thing that really stuck with me, and I think sticks with a lot of people about it, is the rhythm section and these tribal, aggressive drum beats and just earth-shaking sounds. How do you describe what's in your head when you're talking to the band? How do you communicate with them about what you're going for in a record? And where are those drums coming from?
It was funny because I used to, I love playing the drums so much. If I wasn't a singer, I would love to be a drummer. So anyone out there, if you're looking for a drummer, right here. I just love playing the drums. And I used to, well, when it was just in the many formations that this band has had, when it was just me, a guitarist, I used to, if there was a drum kit available on the stage, I would just get behind it and, we'd never brought our own. We just used what was available. I think one time we used a bin and a broom. It was not that successful, but I love playing the drums, and I think it comes from sometimes I feel that the lyrics and sort of if you're feeling, you kind of have to beat it out of yourself a bit. Like the lyrics can be quite somber and quite morose, and I feel almost as if you have to kind of shake that out of yourself, and I think the drums do that for me. It was a sad day when we got an actual drummer. I was relegated to the front of the stage. They had to give me one drum to placate me. But when he arrived, the one thing I had to say, he's an amazing drummer, really amazingly talented drummer. And I had to tell him, I said, just play it worse. You've got to play it worse. Because I've obviously been playing in this really primal style because it's all enthusiasm over skill. And he kind of says that you can't do any fills. You have to play like a 12-year-old all the time. So I think that was kind of how I communicated it at first. It had to be pure sort of. It had to be primal, and it had to just it had to be really instinctive, because that's how how the drums were played on the record.
Yeah. So I read in an interview that you wanted the new record to have even grungier, thicker drums and even louder, more earth-shaking bass. How is that shaping up? Did your dreams come true for this new record?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. I think there's one bass drop, I think, in No Light, that's actually all of my bass dreams come true in one note, and it kind of drops down to this just amazing rumble. I think we spent a lot of time figuring out how to make it the most doomy sound possible. And the drums on that, I think it was funny because it all came from a conversation about what I wanted the next record to sound like, and I just said in my head it sounds like a big bass rumble filled with these crackling electronic drums, and then huge choral sounds that come in and then fade off to nothing and then back again and over and over. And when the first song we wrote was No Light, that kind of sounded exactly like that. So I had quite a clear idea when I went in.
Yeah. You said bass drop. Are you a dubstep fan at all?
I just love sub bass. I find it really comforting in a weird way. Like there were some really fond memories I have of Paul, because Paul is he's kind of a big electronic music guy as well, and so he knows all that stuff, and he loves sub bass, and he can spend hours he's got all these strange machines in his room, and so I'd be kind of go in and I'd be having I'd end up having a little nap while he plays all these sub bass things over and over, and I'd sort of be lying there from the sofa going, yeah, that one sounds great, because it's really soothing.
Yeah, I just saw a YouTube video of a cat lying on a subwoofer, so I think the cat would know what you mean. So moving on here, you're known for a lot of theatrics. What's the craziest thing you've done on stage?
Thinking. I think probably the thing that my mother will never forgive me for is climbing the rigging at Reading Festival and hanging off one-handed from the top while singing. I think I was wearing heels about this this big. But she said, I felt really bad for her actually, because she said she was at home like, hiding behind the sofa. Because apparently my band watched it back, and they were still, even though they knew that I hadn't, were still convinced I was going to fall. But I was kind of wearing a bat wing costume, and I guess, I don't know, it just seemed like a thing that a bat would do.
Hopefully you could use the wings if you.
Do you know what? I think at that point in time I would have been able to.
So I want to just ask a few questions from some YouTubers here. This is from Katie is a Machine. She says, what bands or artists are your biggest songwriting inspirations? And who do you listen to get rid of writer's block?
It's so funny because I think that's almost sometimes like one of the hardest questions to answer, because it would be, I think probably artists like Tom Waits, and I think Arcade Fire have been a really big sort of influence. And I think when I made the first record, I was listening to a lot of Beirut. I think Beirut's, if you're kind of feeling, if I'm feeling a bit blocked, I think Beirut's a good one to listen to, because the melodies are so sort of immersive, and you can kind of drift off in your, in your imagination for a while. So, but there's so many people that I listen to, so it would be really hard to say specifically.
Yeah. Have you heard the new Tom Waits record?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either. I just thought
Desperate to hear it.
maybe you had. Well, it's not out yet, so. But he did have that listening party. Did you see about that?
No, I wasn't invited.
So what's the most ridiculous rumor? This question is coming from Zima143. What's the most ridiculous rumor you've ever heard about yourself?
I think there's a lot of confusion as to how tall I am. I think that, well, I'm this tall, but this is with heels. So I think I'm actually about this tall, which isn't, and I think everyone kind of expects me to come in and be like 7 foot tall. And I always feel really bad for people because I walk in, I'm kind of regular height, not wearing bat wings. And I think everyone does expect me to be like riding in on a chariot, holding a sword, 7 feet tall, screaming. And it's just, I think they're disappointed when I walk in.
How much of that is that image? I mean, obviously people have that image for a reason, because that's part of the way you present yourself on stage and in artwork, and you do have a pretty extensive background in visual art. How much of that is coming from you, and how much of it is the work of creative people around you, or people that you've hired to help create this image?
I think I've worked with the same group of people since the very beginning. And my friends Tabitha Denholm, Tom Beard, he shot my first. They shot Dog Days, the first Dog Days together, and they worked on the first album cover, and they've done this one as well. And they did the What the Water Gave Me snippet, and they did Rabbit Hut video, You Got the Love, and we've worked together really closely. I mean, me and Tom met when we were 17 at Secret Garden Festival. And I can't remember, I was wearing some sort of stolen fancy dress, pink fancy dress costume. Like, sort of, he kind of found me drifting by some lake and ended up taking some pictures of me. I think you can find them. And we kind of were friends ever since. And I met Tabitha as well. And it's kind of been through working with, and, she introduced me to Aldine Johnson, who's helped me with, stage costumes and helped me with the album artwork. But it's kind of like working on an art project together. We've all been friends for so long, and they know me so well. And it's so nice that we've all moved forward together. It hasn't, and to do this next album cover with them, it was really natural, and it was just sort of a progression of style rather than, suddenly changing everything.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Another question here from Oklahoma, from Ansters 1011. What's the strangest way that a fan has reacted when they met you?
I think it's it's always like I always like get. I feel really if they're crying, I don't quite know what to do because I feel really like protective. I'm just like, oh, please don't be scared or sad, like you know. And I instantly like just go in for like the biggest hug. No, don't cry, please don't cry, no crying, because I don't want them to be upset at all. But it's not. I mean, it's not the strangest way. It's just strange for me because I'm never quite sure what to do. So I just go for the hug. I'm like, it's going to be okay. I'm not scary. I'm not 7 foot tall. It's fine.
Okay, here's a good question from Alabama, from Brain Seat People 1. What song would be the bridge between Lungs and Ceremonials?
I think probably No Light, because I think that's the one the first one me and Izza wrote together, and it's kind of, it is, I just kind of spoke about the idea of this song and the sounds for it before it even happened, and it would definitely be a bridge because we started working on it while we were touring Lungs a long time ago. When were we on that Amsterdam tour? 2 years ago. The intro for that song was written on the tour bus in Amsterdam on Rob's birthday. So that was really recent. That wasn't exactly 2 years ago because that was really recently. And we went to an all-night restaurant called Midnights in Brussels to celebrate, and then got on the tour to Amsterdam, and me and Izza at about 4 a.m. decided that we should write the intro to this song. And we got out our little computer and sat at the front of the bus, and all that slow intro was written there, and we recorded the sound of the bus rumbling to make this weird bass sound. And then, the bus arrived at 6 a.m. We were like, right, we must go and celebrate. We must find a bar. And the only place that would serve us drink was this sports bar somewhere in this square in Amsterdam. We had these sitting there in like our strange coats, looking really out of place, drinking this bright green Midori drinks. But the song has made it all the way to this record, so cheers to Midori.
With that song and with others, when you write, do you find that lyrics come first, sounds, melodies? What comes naturally when you're writing?
I think sometimes you have to just sort of let whatever is in your head come out. I think it's the way it's almost like you're translating the music. If I listen to certain chords, they'll sort of conjure up certain emotions or visuals, and you have to sort of transcribe what you're seeing.
Okay, here's a question from Dreaming of the Death in Poland about the song Paper Massacre. She says, we'd love to hear the full version. Will you release it?
Yeah, I can't. I think that one was like a demo I did with Paul. That I think that was about like sort of paper dolls. I think I was writing like a song about like paper dolls that get all torn up, and I don't know, another happy metaphor. But I don't know. Maybe that will. They ended up with like broken arms and legs, and they were torn up. And I really don't know what that says about me, to be honest. But I don't know. Well, maybe I'll try and find that one. I think Paul's got it hidden away somewhere.
You mentioned earlier being on tour with the management. What was that like? Are they cool to be on tour with?
That was so fun. That was one of the. I think that was one of the things that really broke us in general, and we're really, grateful to them for taking us on tour. And we had no money, but we really wanted to go. So I asked my dad if he would take us in his camper van. So my dad was tour managing us in this sort of Sundance camper van. We would be trundling around after MGMT's massive tour bus, like popping up in these little European towns with pots and pans shaking, like leaning out the windows. And we were only sort of a 3-piece then. My friend came, and they were so wonderful, and they really kind of embraced us, and we had an amazing time. But we did all have to sit at the front of the camper van while going up big hills because we were worried that it wouldn't make it.
Do you like being on tour in general? Have you found that it's a really grueling experience, or do you enjoy it for the most part?
I do like it. It's become like, I think you kind of, it's a funny thing touring, because at the beginning of it, it seems there's so much ahead of you that I often get quite down at the beginning of tours because I'm already exhausted at the beginning, and I'm like, oh God, I don't think I can do this. And then it's like about halfway through, you know, you don't know how you could live any other way. And by the end of it, when you've really gotten into your stride, you have to go home. So it's a, you know, it's a funny thing. It takes a while to get used to, but once you're in it, you know, it's an amazing. I like living out of a suitcase, and I'm not actually the most natural traveller. I think was a real London kid, so I don't know if I would have done that much travelling. So I think I'm really lucky to kind of been taken all over the world.
Why did you say you were exhausted even at the beginning of the tour? Or do you just work hard all the time? What's your work schedule like?
I think we do work pretty hard. Well, you know, you're jet lagged, and I think you're exhausted because you see the schedule and it's like, oh, I don't think I can do that, and it's psychologically it just becomes really overwhelming. But you actually don't realise, you know, once you're in it, it's kind of always enjoyable. And the shows themselves and singing and performing for people is so sort of rejuvenating anyway, I think. But it does become about what you live for. You know, the show at the end of the day, you'll be tired all day, and then you'll get up on stage and everything is better. You know, everything and you realise you wouldn't want to do anything else. And you come off stage, it's like, yes, this is amazing. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. But then the stage, it's sort of, I think the performances always save you.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's a question from the Zephyr 727 in California. Florence, when did you discover your voice? When did you discover your amazing voice, and at what age did you decide to take singing seriously?
I think I've always sung. I can't really remember when it's like when I realised. I think I do have a really weird memory of being at school and singing hymns, and the kids in like the row in front of me looking behind like, because I don't know, I must have been singing it really loudly. And I remember being in like music class, and we all had to go up and sing into this microphone, and I think I went up and like took it, like everyone else just stood there and sat and the music teacher looking at me going, ooh, and I was like, So I think it's always been there, but my whole life is I was always singing, like my entire life at home was just a chorus of shut up. They'd be all over the house, and songs were the only thing I could remember. I was really bad at maths and organisation at school, but if I heard a song on the radio, I could always remember it.
Let's see, maybe one more question from YouTubers, and then we'll open up to the floor here for questions. So start brainstorming, folks. So I'm not going to try to pronounce this YouTuber's name, but they're from Lisbon, Portugal. They say, what have you been listening to lately? Is there any artist album that you're really excited about right now?
I've been listening to Watch the Throne, the Kanye and the Jay-Z album, which is amazing. I think that's really good. And I've been listening to the new Beyonce record.
I love that record.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Countdown's amazing.
Yeah.
I do some really, really strange running to that song because I get really, I can't really go to the gym because I can't like run in an enclosed space. I have to feel like I'm like running through like fields or forest. So if I go to the local park, but I always end up like jumping on the benches and sort of trying to two-step balletic running. But it's not very balletic. It's more sort of, who's that strange girl doing a gangly dance in the middle of the park, running. Think like Phoebe from Friends.
So does anybody want to ask any questions here from the audience? Anybody feeling brave? Yes?
It's the kind of obvious question, but I guess what influence does YouTube have for you? Do you watch any certain types of videos, or what's your favorite video from YouTube?
Yeah, I think like talked about it earlier, but I became obsessed with this Otis Redding clip of Try a Little Tenderness from the Stax Soul Tour, and it completely, blew my mind when I found it. And I think as I was watching Ducky's dance from Pretty in Pink constantly as well, so I was, on both sides of the Otis Redding spectrums, was kind of just becoming completely absorbed in both of these clips, and would watch them before I went on stage every time. So if you see me dancing, it's a bit of Otis and a bit of Ducky.
Anybody else? All right, well, Florence, thank you so much for joining us today. And ladies and gentlemen, Florence from Florence and the Machine.
Thanks for having me.